This happened when I was about 13. The animosity between my mother and I was particularly bad at that time, and it wasn't very long after this went down that my mother beat me so hard my father threatened to put her in prison. Back then, there were only two TVs with cable in this house, the living room TV and the TV in the den. The den was where my sister and I typically watched TV or played video games, but I'd use the living room TV once in a while when my parents weren't home, because my sister and I frequently fought over who got to watch what. Our dad had to make a sharing schedule for us. The next bit is what led to that being started. It was a weekday evening. I wanted to watch Toonami on Cartoon Network, but my sister wanted to play video games instead. I pointed out that she gets the TV most of the time already, but she didn't care and loudly called Evil Mama Bear into the room. EMB snapped her fingers in front of my face and bluntly told me to let Sis have the TV. I explained how much she'd already had it, but EMB straight up didn't care and said I was probably watching too much TV anyway. I then pointed out that I couldn't be watching too much TV because Sis not only watches way more than me, but also practically glued to her video games. And I pointed out to EMB that when she gets home on most nights, she plops herself down in front of the TV for hours, especially on a Friday. Well, she didn't like hearing that and smacked me on my butt. Then told me to go to my room. Like usual, I had to wait till Dad got home and tell him what happened. And he got in a big fight with EMB over her favoritism. She didn't even deny a thing she said or did. Then Dad told her that from then on, the den TV would be shared equally, and he was going to make sure of it. That Sunday, he drew up a chart stating what days and times my sister and I would get our turns with the TV when we wanted it. And the schedule would alternate every week. Like, I would get a choice of what I would want to watch on Friday of one week, and then Sis would get it the next. Then the following Friday, it'd go back to me, then back to her again, etc. And that's how it was for the whole week. My sister saw the schedule and had a full-blown tantrum over how she was going to miss new episodes of her favorite shows. Don't ask me what her favorite shows were, I don't remember. Dad then said EMB would just have to give up some of her TV time on those days then, but EMB straight up said no to this, and that her TV time was her me time. We went less than 1 week before my sister flipped out because it was my Friday first, and I was going to watch what I wanted. She tried to change the channel, but I kept the remote from her. She went crying to EMB, and no surprise, EMB tried to get me to change the channel, but I just reminded her of the schedule Dad set. She tried to overrule it, but I reminded her saying that if she did, I'd just tell Dad later. That made her stomp out in a huff, leaving my sister crying and having a meltdown. Sis ended up going so ballistic over not getting to control the TV that she went ape around the room, going nuts like an insane monkey. She grabbed the TV and tried to pull it out of the entertainment center, but I held the TV in place and kept her from doing that. So instead, she started trying to break almost anything else she could grab. Evil Mama Bear had to come running back into the room to restrain her like she was some sort of screaming wild animal. And then she demanded I put the TV on my sister's show right that second, but I again refused and said none of this was my fault, and she was just gonna have to learn to be fair. EMB looked like she wanted to set me on fire, and then just dragged my sister into the living room to watch her shows there. And EMB complained the whole time. Sis got to rule the living room TV that evening. The next day, EMB went to Dad and demanded that we have cable installed in all the bedrooms as well, because only 2 TVs with cable in the house were not enough. Dad tried to fight her about it, but my sister had another meltdown tantrum the next time. It was my Friday, in which she actually did manage to break the TV. It fell right on its face on the floor and was DOA. EMB blamed me for it and tried to ground me for not just letting my sister watch her shows, but I told her she couldn't ground me because this wasn't my fault and I was abiding by the schedule. Sis didn't even seem fazed by the fact that she just broken the den TV and ran into the living room to try and change the channel on that TV. But EMB refused to let her. Meanwhile, I'm cleaning up what's left of the TV from the den. Then EMB came storming back into the room and demanded I go get the TV from my bedroom and set it up in the den for my sister. I simply told her that wasn't happening because I didn't want her breaking my TV too. And it was still my day to pick what to watch anyway, no matter what TV was in the den. EMB sneered at me and walked away, so I thought it was over. I hauled the broken TV outside to the garbage, and when I came back, I saw EMB and my sister were trying to walk out of my bedroom with my TV. I asked what the heck they thought they were doing, and EMB said she was taking my TV whether I liked it or not. I told her that wasn't fair, and she retorted that life isn't fair. So, I picked up the cordless phone and started dialing Dad's work number. EMB was yelling at me to put the phone down. I told her to put my TV back and take the one from Sis's room if they needed one so bad. Then Sis whined that she didn't want to do that. I said I didn't care. It was then that my dad picked up and I started giving him a rundown of the situation. EMB looked defeated and started walking my TV back into my room and left it laying on my bed. I gave the phone to EMB and Dad laid into her. When that was over, she handed the phone back to me and Dad said to get the TV from Sis's bedroom and put it into the den because she's grounded. Sis freaked out and ran into her room. When I went to get the TV, she tried holding the door handle, but her strength didn't compare to mine and I got her door open. She was screaming so much, EMB had to restrain her while I unplugged her TV and took it to the den. I got to watch my shows on a much smaller TV while Sis spent hours crying in her room. After that, EMB kept giving me dirty looks that said, "This is all your fault." EMB then went back to my dad and once again demanded we have cable installed in the bedrooms too. Dad finally caved and we had cable lines run all over the house. Dad bought a replacement TV for the den too. After that, Sis and I never fought over the TV again because one of us could go to their room and watch TV if the other had the den TV for the day. I was completely content with this as I could then watch Toonami while lying comfortably on my bed and no one would bother me. Well, I guess this got a neutral ending. Seriously, how bad can your sister be back then? What did your sis want to watch TV in your room, then got EMB, she destroyed it, and your dad made her pay for it? Your mom is so much worse than Mr. Krabs. My sister and I back then both had TVs with built-in VCRs in our rooms. They were the exact same model too. Though my sister broke the VCR in her TV and got my mother to switch them when I wasn't home, but that's a story for another post. Next story. A few years ago, I was working IT support and data analysis at a small-ish 50-people company. I had gotten the job thanks to my father being the head of IT and had spent the last few years trying to prove myself, and I generally liked the job, was good at it, and most people respected me. Even though I was young and looked younger, I had worked there longer than about half of the company because we recently expanded to double the number of employees. I was in charge of assigning laptops, among other things, and I was the first in line of support if something techie went wrong. One of the newer employees was a multilingual sales guy. I'll call him Marty. Marty had a high opinion of himself and his own capabilities, including with technology. Instead of asking for help or resources from the IT team, he would rather look up problems himself and try to solve them, sometimes using free software downloads from random websites. You may think that this is good, less for me to worry about, but I liked helping people with their tech issues, and he had a knack for making things worse. He somehow managed to get a virus on his company MacBook, some tool that also happened to divert all his network activity to a random IP, a huge security issue. One day, Marty had a laptop problem that he couldn't solve. He didn't like it, but I told him he could either take it to an Apple store himself, it was under warranty, or I could reset it but keep his files. He took a day to think about it and decided to let me reset his MacBook. I had informed him that I would have to perform a full backup and this could take several hours depending on how many files he had. So I started backup process in the morning and tried to go about the rest of my job. But Marty decided to park himself on a chair between me and my desk neighbor and watch the backup. It made me uncomfortable to have Marty in my personal space and sharing my desk with me. I told him he could still do a lot of work via his phone, as other salespeople do when I work on their laptops, and in response he asked if he could use my phone charger. I tried politely hinting at him to go find somewhere else to sit, but he didn't get it. So I straight up told him he was in my personal space and making me uncomfortable and to go find somewhere else to be, and I'll inform him when the migration is done in a few hours. The backup took longer than expected due to the number of files Marty had. Marty had decided rather than sitting at his own desk, he still wanted to hover nearby and was on his phone in the IT lounge area, making the people who work in that area slightly uncomfortable. The backup completed after lunch, but I had a meeting to attend with a VP before it was finished. I rarely had meetings and this one wasn't long, about half an hour. Just when I got back to my desk after the meeting to check the status of Marty's laptop, I saw that it was behaving unexpectedly, net booting. I asked my desk neighbor Victor if he had done this and he told me no, but Marty had been at my desk while I was away at a meeting. My mind quickly filled in the blanks of what must have happened while I was away from my desk for just half an hour. Impatient Marty had come and wiped his hard drive as according to what he had read online. I had done the full backup because it was policy and just in case, but I knew his problem would be solved if I reinstalled the OS but kept his files, and it would take less time too. But he had wiped everything and also managed somehow to wipe the recovery partition too. This man is dangerous, and I knew thanks to a mistake I had made months before on a different laptop that this job had gone from almost done to taking up to 12 more hours to complete. I was pissed that he somehow thought he could just walk all over my work. I was pissed that I would now have to work on this overnight because I don't want to keep him away from his laptop for more than a day. I angrily confirmed with Marty what he had done and informed him that he had really messed up with the laptop, and I definitely wasn't going to get it up and running today. But I was still angry, so I told my dad, the head of IT, what had happened, and he agreed that Marty had crossed a line. But I was still angry. And so I told Marty's boss, the head of sales, what he had done. Marty had also talked to her, and she convinced me to lend him a spare laptop to use until I could finish this. I confirmed with my dad that I would give him the oldest, clunkiest spare laptop on hand, and he agreed. That made me feel a little better, like at least Marty would be a little inconvenienced by what he had done. Marty had majorly inconvenienced me. I took the amnesiac MacBook home and fixed it overnight, downloaded macOS and installed via USB, restored Marty's files. I gave him back the laptop the next day. I was still pretty pissed at Marty, but he insisted he needed to talk with me privately. He took me into a room to basically sorry and asked me not to tell him next time. I said whatever and left the meeting room because I just wanted him out of my face. When he gave me back the old loaner laptop, he told me he liked it better than his shiny new one and asked if he could keep using it. This slightly angered me further because it was supposed to be a punishment. He wasn't supposed to like it. I had told him no because company policy. I'm not giving him an out-of-warranty laptop. I'm normally an easygoing, forgiving person, but Marty thinking that he was entitled to do my job for me? Unacceptable. I don't think it's a bad idea to try things like closing and reopening applications or just restarting a laptop to see if that works before asking IT for help. Trying the simpler things just sometimes usually works just fine, and most IT people I've gotten help from take those steps first anyway. With that said, I would never download software onto a work laptop without getting an okay from IT, and I would definitely never mess with something my IT team was working on. That is just idiotic. Marty sounds like a huge pain to work with. Next story. Hey guys, I'm kinda new to posting, so forgive me on the phrasing, but this is the story of a host late at night right before close. That host is me. So the restaurant that I work at closes at 11 p.m. and we have a cutting system for our servers. Pretty much whoever is a double gets first out, and then whoever clocks in earliest. So cue to a very slow Sunday night. There's maybe 2 people sitting up in my cocktail area, and all my servers had their last tables in my main dining area. Entitled Karen walks in with her Kevin of a husband. Entitled Karen: hello, are y'all still open? Me: yes ma'am, we are still open, but all I have open currently is my cocktail and bar area, and it is all open seating, so you're more than free to take a seat anywhere you please. EK: but I want to sit down there. She points to a round booth that I usually sit parties of 5 or higher in. Me, really tired and just wanting to clock out: I'm sorry ma'am, but I don't have any servers down there currently as they're all trying to go home in the next 30 minutes or so. EK: voice rising. I want to sit at that booth. Me. Now, obviously, over this interaction, I'm sorry, miss, I can sit you at this first round booth in my cocktail area. You will still be able to get full service and drinks. Cue my manager waking up just as I'm about to sit them. Manager, what seems to be the problem here? EK, this guy won't sit me down there when there's obviously seats. Me, now very upset but trying to keep my calm. Yes sir, I did say this, but that is because all my servers are about to go home down there. 5 minutes had gone by since then and last call had already passed, so they couldn't get drinks like they wanted to. EK, well, if you're not gonna let this guy sit down there, we'll take our business elsewhere. They storm off into the cold night, never to be seen again. So sorry if this was boring, but it was just so appealing to be called an asshole by a 40-plus-year-old woman. Edit. I also forgot to add that thanks to this lady for making a bad review on our restaurant, the bussers now have to flip chairs at the end of the night after every guest leaves, which in my opinion is dumb. I don't understand why people do stuff like this. Like, you don't walk into a restaurant 30 minutes before they close in the first place, unless you're planning on just grabbing a drink and leaving. Like, that's just proper etiquette in general. Then to make a huge fuss over a goddamn table? Like, why does it even matter? It's not going to change your experience or your food, especially when no one is even there. People have zero respect. It's so gross. You know what else is funny? It's almost always comes from the boomer or generation after that. Yet they're the first to tell us how lazy and ungrateful millennials and Gen Z are. And it's always the hosts who get the most flack for anything because we literally just sit y'all and greet. We're the first faces you see before